In one of my recent videos, I discovered that the frequency response of slew limiters is actually flat both in magnitude and phase. I did that by analyzing a self-made slew limiter with EQ curve analyzer too. I said I wouldn't release it because there are already other great slew limiters made by Air Windows, but then I was told I should still release it because mine has an oversampling feature, so I did. But this comment is the one that actually fascinated me the most. John Doe New 3MH, or whatever your name is pronounced, I don't know, told me that putting a slew limiter into the sidechain input of a compressor makes it sound like a varimu compressor, which is some sort of analog compressor. Yeah, I was searching for some images and this seems to be a varimu compressor. Looks very musical by being an analog device. So let's find out how that would sound to recreate in a digital way. So here we are in a project in Bitwig on a group that mostly consists of drums. First of all, I will load a tool device, which just does nothing for now. And now I load slew over my new slew limiter and dial in some settings. Okay, nice little muffled smashy sound. I also load a little oscilloscope. Now I chose a really low slew rate here because I want to emphasize on the fact that slew limiters basically make the whole signal triangular shaped the more you dial them in, and this is exactly what happens here. So the resulting drive that we get from putting that into the sidechain input of a compressor should result in a different drive than just using the original waveform. Of course, we can quickly compare this with a normal low pass filter. So this is basically the same as with the slew limiter, but it has a round shape. And that's also what we hear in a slew limiter. It's not just more muffled, but it also has more of a noisy, slightly distorted sound. So now I will take an audio receiver and receive the audio from before the slew limiter by getting the output from the tool. That's why I put it there. And now I can put any compressor of choice here that has a sidechain input and select the output from the slew limiter. Now I can use the in and X button to change between the direct input for the sidechain and the slew limited one. So we can see here on the threshold knob that the slew limiter doesn't have the same peak level anymore as the dry signal. So we turn up slew again and also use a little bit more gain. And we can confirm that this is indeed a different sound. Let's drive it a little bit harder. And now I will use the main input, but apply a normal low pass filter so that I have something to compare on the same frequency. So indeed, these two, let's say, compressor modes are very similar, but slightly different. And this means that we now have twice as many compressor modes to choose from, simply by adding a slew limiter to the equation. Let's deactivate these plugins again and try the high pass filter mode of the slew limiter. And now we have a signal that tries to isolate the transients, at least that's what it seems like. So now we activate the audio receiver and the compressor again and try this signal. Now we get a really interesting signal that only keeps the body of the drums there. Let's dial it back. Now this is actually a pretty useful signal because it kind of just makes the drums a little bit softer and warmer. Maybe they sit better in the mix even. Let's try. Used like this, it sounds just amazing, I think. So now this is twice as many distortion modes again. So we have 8 times 2 is 16 and 16 times 2 is 32. So now if you have Pro C2, you have 32 different distortion modes simply by adding a slew limiter. But of course, you have to take this with a grain of salt. I'm very aware that no one will, every time they instantiate a compressor, do this whole trickery here with the routing. It would make more sense if a slew limiter was already part of the compressor mode of a compressor, and who knows, maybe in some of these modes there is already a slew limiter in them. I don't know, maybe there is, maybe that's what makes them so different. This is simply something to consider when using slew limiters. They are very underexplored and there is still a lot that we can find out about them, just like this.